pediatric orthopedics is an area that's been kind of missed over the decades. It's a smaller market, and the large companies tended to focus on the adult market.
Hello, and welcome to the Gain3d Business Development Marketing Podcast. On today's episode, we interview Terry Schlotterback, and we discuss his journey from automobile manufacturing engineer to angel investor. I hope that you enjoy this episode and like and subscribe for further content. So, welcome, Terry Schlotterback.
Thank you, Roy.
Coming on the Gain3d Marketing Business Podcast. We'd like to start with an introduction and some background, if you don't mind filling in, a brief overview of your business journey.
Okay.
What inspired you to start on the path that you ended up on?
Well, it's what I tell people is I'm born and raised in the farming communities of Noble County.
Okay.
So I come from humble beginnings. I had large family. I had 35 cousins, I think.
Wow.
One of the first to go to college. It was a big deal back then. And always wanted to be an engineer, even from the early days. I had a mentor in the small town I was from. I said, I want to be like him. Mm-hmm. So I pursued engineering, got my degree from Purdue, and came out very, very fortunate. The first few jobs I had was in the automotive, and every one of them seemed to be in something new.
Yep.
And International Harvester, we built a new truck from the ground up. Went to GM in Detroit. I got put in an advanced auto group where we were designing an automobile for the future. So all bets were off. You could do anything you wanted. But that was when I learned also that the old adage that, well, that's been done before, or that doesn't work because we tried that, was prevalent. And so I always took that on as a challenge. Mm-hmm. Didn't like Detroit, so I got an opportunity to come back to Warsaw. Not back to, because I really had never been to Warsaw, working for the orthopedic companies. And Zimmer gave me a shot back in 1982, and it was just a time when everything was growing like crazy. And had a lot of great bosses, good mentors, got involved in, again, some stuff that was brand new. And so I just really enjoyed working on new things. In fact, you might say I was always distracted by the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
So always looking to grow and learn, quite honestly. So in a nutshell, real quickly, I spent 10 years at Zimmer, and then went off to try my hand at a startup in Boston with a small startup called MyTech Surgical.
Yeah, what was that like, moving your whole family across the country?
I guess I'd have to say that a lot of my success is based on my faith and my family. I have my wife of 50 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Got behind me in everything I did, and children the same way. Said, Dad, if you have to go to Boston, we're with you. Let's go. So we cashed out of Warsaw, sold our house, cut up the credit cards, and I was on my way. Well, it didn't take long to realize I wasn't cut out for Boston. Fortunately, we were successful, sold that company to J&J, and took the opportunity then to move back to Warsaw with DePuy, and worked for DePuy for maybe 18 months in some new stuff that Jim Lynn at the time was trying to accomplish with sports medicine. And I've met a lot of great people over those years, too, which I'm kind of glossing over. But that kind of took a turn. Zimmer came back and asked me to come back to work for them in the mid-'90s. And that was a great opportunity to go back at a time when people from Warsaw realized those were not the brightest of times for us, and Zimmer specifically, as they were experiencing their first layoffs. But it was a time to come back and get involved in some reorganization, and learned an incredible amount in those, let's say, those 10 years that I spent at Zimmer. I had an opportunity to elevate myself to a position of actually what I always thought I wanted to do was lead a division. And I did. I actually was leading 2 divisions before I had a break. Let's say that one of the things you have to do is always take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that. And had to actually leave because of the stress that was associated with that, and some of the physical manifestations that occur when you have a high stress. But that was also a great learning experience, and quite honestly a God thing, because taking me out of that particular role after 25 years allowed me to really focus on some different things.
Yeah.
And that got me to the point where I am today. What I said I wanted to do was, you just don't stop, and
Yeah.
you've had all this experience. And I said, well, let's help other people get started. And so rather than volunteer at the library or work at Walmart,
Yeah.
I got started in some angel networking, providing capital for people wanting to start businesses, and got really involved with a new company called Orthopediatrics.
Yep.
Raising funds for that. And Orthopediatrics has turned out to be a great success story, great people, incredible team.
Can you tell us a little bit about what they do?
Orthopediatrics, let me back up a little bit. Pediatric orthopedics is an area that's been kind of missed over the decades. It's a smaller market, and the large companies tended to focus on the adult market. So products that were used for children really weren't made for children. They were adulterated adult products. And so it was just totally focused on kids.
Yep.
And that's a passion that all these people that work there have, which also makes it a lot of fun to work there.
I mean, being a kid myself that broke his femur at 9 years old, they opted to not put any plates or I don't know, what would that be?
With screws, plates, rods.
Nothing. They just set it with a body cast. And at 42 now, I'm feeling a lot of the physical disability that's caused from a misalignment of my hips over the last 30 years.
Right. And that's really one of the areas that we focus on is trauma and deformity, the biggest part of our market. Now scoliosis is becoming a large part of that market as well. But we actually had, working from a database over in Ohio, that large database of children's anatomy, bones physically, we were able to go in and map out what it really took to deal with small children's issues. So you're talking about a lot of small products now.
Oh, okay.
Very similar to what we use in adults, but specifically designed for young children, especially growing children, because you have to avoid the growth plates and take into account that they're growing still. So if you fix a bone that's been broken, it's going to continue to grow. So those are really the areas we focused on initially. But even today, 17 years later, the company's doing extremely well and recognized the leader in pediatric orthopedics, and is continuing to grow into other areas. So it's been a great experience, good for the community, which is what I really wanted to do to begin with.
Yeah.
It kind of led me to look for other opportunities like Nextremity. Nextremity, Rod Meyer brought that to town here, and we needed to raise some capital and grow that company, which we did very nicely. Great team there as well. Very, very focused on their mission, and that worked out very well. As you know, now it's owned by Medartis, and that company's doing well for the community.
Yep.
And then along the way, there's the boys at Ignite. You may know those gentlemen.
Yeah. I grew up with Brian
Hoderick and Matt Purdy. I remember they came to my house in December before they actually left their original jobs and wanted to start their own business. And what a great opportunity for those two gentlemen. Obviously experts in their field, and they did it with excellence.
Yep.
And that's worked out as well for them in the community.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It kind of it speaks to how important it is for us to continue to recreate our industry here in Warsaw. These are the up and coming companies. Not to take anything away from the ZVs and the Depew, because they are the anchors for our community.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But all these other companies that spin off from that or start up on their own is really, really important for our community.
That feed into that ecosystem. And
Right.
Yeah. So what type of or how do you approach and prioritize growth in the business? Are there specific strategies or tactics that you've been particularly effective for you?
I think probably the most important thing that I bring to the table in working with these companies is stay on mission. There are so many things that get in the way of growth. One being capital. You have a tendency to say, well, we can do this much with what we have, and then you stunt your growth. Once you see a mission, you really need to stay after it.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to say you have to invest ahead of growth, and that's not always easy to do. It takes a strong stomach to take the risk and start something to begin with, let alone continue to invest as the business grows. Because as you know, it takes quite a bit of time
Oh, yeah.
for something to mature to the point where it can support itself.
Yep. That's why I'm still working a full-time job while I'm starting this business. So, do you have any advice when building a strong team? I mean, it's vital for success. So what strategies do you employ in recruiting and developing?
Yeah.
As an angel investor, you're obviously looking not just at the books, but the people who run the company.
Sure. Books have been written on this. It's been studied every which way you can. But when you mentioned success and you mentioned teams, you can't have success without teamwork. Yep. But not all teams work. One of the things I've learned, and I'm not expressing anything here that hasn't been written or
Mm-hmm.
I've learned from really good leaders myself. But you have to have the right people on the team in the right seats. Mark Throdahl, who's led Orthopediatrics through a lot of its growth and into being a public company, likes to use the analogy of the boys in a boat. If you're familiar with that, that's the story of the rowing team that won in the Olympics in 1936, I think. It was during those early years of Germany.
Yep.
And they had a ragtag group of men, boys, that won the Olympics, and they didn't give them much chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
But they established a team. They worked hard, pulled together as a team, and won. And I think it was important because it's not just the teamwork. It's having the right people in the right positions.
Yep.
And many times you can have great individuals, but if they're not in the right seats, so to speak, it just doesn't work as well. So part of leadership is determining what is the right team and who are the right people for the right seats at any given time in a company's evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, success absolutely takes teamwork, but you got to make sure you've got the right team.
Yeah.
Investing, you'll find, is when I've learned that one of the first things I look at before investing is who is on the team, who are the leaders, and what is their level of success, whether it's what you think they can do or what they have actually accomplished. So most investors look at the team first before they even look at the technology.
As a leader, what is your leadership style? And how do you ensure effective communication and collaboration within the team?
Mm-hmm. I tell everyone, including my own children, as they were getting into their careers, that the number one trait I think that is important is humility. Now that may sound funny, but if you're not humble, I question whether you have the ability to actually learn. And if you can't learn, it's really hard to grow.
Yep.
So humility is extremely important, I think, in a leadership position. The second thing is I've always looked for ways to allow my people to grow. I've always commented with people, even who worked for me, that if we're not providing what you feel you need in order to grow in your position, then it's fair for you to look for a different position that is going to get you to where you want to be in your career. Now, all wrapped up in that is all kinds of personal issues and geographic issues and things like that. Yeah. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, I'm going to quit and go find a job that gets me what I want. But I think at the root of it, that's what I've always done. I've been blessed. I've been very successful with a lot of my ventures. It's allowed me to do the things I do today. But I can honestly say that I never chased that. I never chased that success level. I was always chasing the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
What was going to allow me to grow? What was I going to enjoy doing? I mean, I tell people I really never held the same job more than 3 years. I never worked for the same company more than 10, and that was Zimmer twice, 10 years in the 90s, another 10 years later in the late 90s and early 2000s. So it's one of those things I've been very fortunate to be able to continue to grow and learn. And when you do learn and have that experience, then it's something that people want. So the opportunities come to continue to grow. So I kind of tell people I spent the first 25 years gaining experience, and thankful to Zimmer and other companies that allowed me to do that. Then once I got my head straight and started working with startups and entrepreneurs, it became even more evident that it's just you look for ways to learn and grow, and then pass that information on.
Yeah. So advice for any aspiring entrepreneurs, for those aspiring to start their own business, what advice would you offer on your experiences and lessons learned along the way?
There are so many factors there. You know, I think about Brian and Matt, wildly successful venture that they had.
Yep.
Timing was everything. I mean, they had a product that was that met the needs in the marketplace in a way that nothing had done before. They had companies that needed that in a big way. They needed that to be competitive in the marketplace, and they had surrounded themselves with some great people.
Yep.
The surgeons they collaborated with, and the people here in town that helped them kind of see clearly on what their vision was and how they could attain it.
Yep.
I was so impressed with their ability to soak up all the information they could get. They asked all the right questions and listened, and many times put that into practice. So as an entrepreneur, most of the time those people are aggressive. They want to get out there and move. My advice is take as much mentoring and as much information as you can from people who have been there before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, exit strategy then. So,
well, you know, it's interesting. Yeah, exit strategies from a standpoint of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, or even just in a leadership role.
Yeah. It's interesting. I learned early, probably with my MyTech days, that when you have your mission and you have your strategy, you stay on that. When J&J came a knocking and wanting to buy, I was running business development at the time, and I remember talking to my boss, the president of the company, saying, I think they want this. And he said, well, let's let it mature. And at the same time, we had a lot of things going on, investing. We were going to move facilities. We just wholesale move, which included a lot of dollars to spend to move.
Yep.
And I said, do you really want to do this with all this happening behind the scenes? And he said, absolutely. We march to our mission. We can't let that distract us from that. And it was key. I mean, we went on for another, I guess, 12 to 18 months before there was actually a significant offer that we couldn't refuse. And the same way with some of the new companies that I've worked with. You have your mission, you stay with your mission, you don't let anything distract you from that. If you start chasing that brass ring, so to speak, too soon, then you're really not following your mission. And so that's it. Stay on mission. Yeah. Look, exits will come. I mean, they do. And if not, then you're growing something for the future here.
Yep.
And I can say that about Orthopediatrics, that it was never for sale. And our whole goal was to build something long-lasting for the community, and our customers and our patients.
Yep.
And that's still the mission today.
Nice. Well, I mean, I'm at my end of my list here almost. So legacy and impact. Looking ahead, you've talked about the Orthopediatrics. Is that the vision for your legacy that you want to leave behind for the community? Then is
it's interesting. I'm very fortunate. And I think it's a God thing. That's the only thing you can look at. You can say, wow, how did all this happen? This guy out of the cornfields of Noble County.
Yep.
I've just been blessed all the way along. 17 years ago, when I quit working for the big companies and decided to work with entrepreneurs and had the mission of helping people get started here in the community, I've seen all that kind of come to fruition. And that's very satisfying. But then you go, well, what's next? Because I'm kind of at the end of the road when it comes to technology.
Yep.
As an engineer, you're out for several years. You really kind of lose sight of that. But my involvement in with investors, with the marketplace, is very valuable to new companies, up and growing companies. And then more recently, I accepted a role as chairman of OrthoWorks for the community. And I'm finding, as Tim Early likes to say, we do a brain dump. Mm-hmm. It's time to do that brain dump and allow people to do with it as they please.
Yep.
But here's what we've seen happen in the past if you do it this way and that way. And OrthoWorks is giving us an opportunity. Everyone around that boardroom, people are involved in what's happening in our community. That's what they all want. It's really quite fun and invigorating with things that are going on right now in our community. So if I can play a piece of that, play a role in that, that's what I'll do, as long as I'm useful.
I mean, for the ignorant and the viewers, what is OrthoWorks?
I'm sorry. OrthoWorks was started, probably 15 years ago with a grant from the Lilly Foundation that essentially said, what do we need to do to attract and retain talent in our community, specifically focused around the orthopedic industry. Mm-hmm. It's broader than that, obviously, because if you're doing things that will have young professionals come to town, work for these companies, and stay, that's what this was all about. Now, it's kind of morphed. We call it OrthoWorks 2.0 now, and but we're looking to go farther. And then recently, the state, thanks to our elected representatives, have come to us and said, we'd like to invest more in the community. How can we do that? And can OrthoWorks help us do that? So we said, sure, we'll step up and take that on. We don't know what that necessarily means. There's a lot of very, very smart people in positions of influence in our county that are involved in this. But OrthoWorks' primary mission is to help support the ecosystem here in Kosciuszko County, directed to the orthopedic industry, but in a more broad sense with everything going on and all the employers here in town.
Yeah. So not just the employers, but possibly like community, school involvement. Because if you want them to stay, they're going to want to raise families, and so.
Yeah, the people that are sitting around that table at OrthoWorks on our board are people like Drew Flam, president of Grace College, and Dave Hoffert, superintendent of schools for Warsaw. And also we get involved also with the other schools as well, Wawasee and Whitco, and they're all at the table on this. So colleges, schools, we are what we like to call a catalyst. And to be that catalyst, we need all voices in the community coming together to talk about any particular project that might be going on. Any particular project going on all by itself isn't as strong as if you bring a lot of people together that have like ideas. So OrthoWorks is, Bob Vito is the president of our organization. And as Bob and I talked, we really like to consider ourselves a catalyst to bringing people together, focused on projects, and bringing them through to the finish line.
Nice. Well, Terry, thanks for coming.
Well, thanks for the invitation.
Sitting with us and talking. I'll probably have you on again sometime, hopefully.
Hey, anytime.
We'll have some more questions for you and the time. So.
Well, it's interesting. There's so many topics you can take on. One, leadership is one that I find fascinating. And I always get into arguments or discussions with my staff on whether leaders are born or made. Yep. And I take the position that leaders are born. Many people say, no, they're made. And I've had enough, let's say, academy grads that worked for me over the years that they'll stand up and take you to the mat that leaders are made. And I always say, well, listen, if you're at a military academy, you were already a leader when you got there. They just brushed you up and made you into a leader in their areas. But that's a deep discussion that you could go on and on about whether leaders are made or whether they're actually born.
Yep, definitely. I think you could probably make a leader, but most leaders are born.
Well, it's not one or the other. It's a combination, certainly, Corey.
Yeah.
But it's fun to talk about.
Yep. Well, I mean, we can keep talking about that if you want.
Well, it is an interesting topic, and I think it's a combination of your upbringing, what you were exposed to when you were young, and then obviously your experiences.
Yep.
You don't start out being a leader, but your parents, your teachers. I took a course one time when I was involved in some really nice Bristol Myers Squibb, Bristol Myers at the time, educational programs. Charlie Heinbolt led one of the sessions, who was the president of Bristol Myers. And this was one of his favorites, where you actually had to consider what childhood experience did you have that impacted you today, still today, that makes you who you are. And if you go through that kind of a process, you start finding certain things, whether it was trust or humility or respect, that were all things that go into being a leader. And again, you can go down the technical side or the characteristics you might have personally, and how that all adds up to being a leader. But again, you could explore it many different ways.
And there's been many books written about it as well.
I remember there's a book called
one right here.
There's one called Good to Great. And,
I've read that one.
Right.
Richard Collins.
I have never met a true level 5 leader. I have worked for some level 4s, verge of level 5, but just couldn't kind of get over it. And that's my opinion. All right.
And then I really like this one, the Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. I don't know if you've read that one.
That's
definitely one of my favorite.
Military jargon. Generals always eat last.
Oh yeah. Yep. That's the premise of the book, basically.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great analogy, I think, because you can just see that the generals are the last in line. Yeah. And it's so true in any business, no matter what size it is. A good leader is taking care of their people first. Yeah.
Well, Terry, I mean, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up.
Okay, good. It's been fun.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming.
Not a problem.
I appreciate you joining us for the entire episode today. If you enjoyed this content, go ahead and check out Gain3d.net. See if there's anything that we can do to help you further your business development and/or digital marketing plan.